All right, good evening. I'm so glad to be here tonight. I'm so glad it's Monday night. We have an incredible show. Our show it's all about the business tonight, and that's the business and network marketing with 9atNight.com. And I'm Christine Campbell, the host. Every weekday night from Monday through Friday, we have incredible topics. We have wonderful guests from all around the country, very experienced and specialized in their field. And so when it comes to it's all about the business, we're going to have topics tonight discussed about a home-based business and the benefits of it. We're going to kick off with our CPA, Richard Brough, and he's absolutely phenomenal with that, as well as with our coach. He coaches with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and a whole slew of others, and that's LeCheminant. But right now, let's get started. Tonight, each one of us are going to kind of give our take of why a home-based business. And so just kind of think about that. If you've never considered that before, it's something that there's all backup residuals. Everybody can use something, and in case emergencies happen. And so that's why we feel this is a very special topic to discover and to talk about. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first guest, and he's my co-host. His name is Richard Brough, as I mentioned before, and he has a ton of background when it comes to making a positive difference. He graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts degree in accounting with minors in business administration and Mandarin Chinese. He spent well over 35 years helping small and home-based business owners increase their profits while helping them on taxes. And most of those years were also spent as financial auditor, which provides Richard with a thorough understanding of how an auditor thinks. He travels all around the country presenting workshops for the home-based business industry. So he definitely knows the importance and the benefits of having a home-based business. He is also listed in publications such as the National Dean's List, America's Registry of Outstanding Professionals, Montclair Who's Who among executives and professionals, and the International Who's Who of entrepreneurs. And so my pleasure greatly to welcome Richard Brough. We're so glad that you're here tonight, Richard.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks for that great introduction. As always, I appreciate it. And I really appreciate you putting together this platform to help people every Monday be successful in their home-based business. We've talked a little bit about multiple streams of income and why that's important, residual income, and it's all important. But another very important benefit of having a home-based business is taxes. So money that you're spending right now anyway can be converted into tax-deductible business expenses. Over the past few weeks, we've talked about paying family members, such as your children, your spouse wages, ways to make your mileage on your vehicle deductible and be able to deduct that. We've talked about some of your travel expenses, making those business travel so you can get tax deductions for it. The list goes on and the benefits from a tax standpoint of having a home-based business. As a matter of fact, in my mind, it's almost, it's crazy not to have a home-based business, just from the tax aspects of things. And tonight, for my little tax tidbit, if you want to call it, I'd like to talk about maybe thinking outside the box a little bit. And that is donations. Okay, a lot of my clients, they're charitable, they're giving, they give donations. However, donations are not a business deduction. And anymore, you may not be able to deduct them even as what's called an itemized deduction. But if you can convert those donations into legitimate business advertising expenses, then it's fully deductible as a business expense. Let me give you just a slight example of what I'm talking about. Every year, our church has a bake sale to raise funds for something, okay, for the youth, for whatever it is. And my wife and I go over and support that. And we'll always buy, that $100 plate of cookies, okay? That's not advertising, that's a donation. I do not get to deduct that. However, what's if instead of buying that plate of cookies, I could do something that would be counted as advertising? Maybe I talk to them about sponsoring so if they do flyers, maybe on the flyer, I can have my website put on that flyer and I give them $100 to do that. Well, it contributed the $100, they benefited from that, but now it's an advertising expense for me. Maybe they would let me put some business cards on a table or a small banner up, things like that. Now it's gotten to be tax deductible business expense. And the nonprofit has actually gotten more money. They got my $100 I was going to give them anyway. Plus, they still have that plate of cookies they can sell, which I may buy for $100. Cookies are kind of my weakness. Okay. And so that's one thing to consider. Now, also interest on your credit cards. A lot of people use credit cards, they'll commingle, we call it, but they'll use the same credit card for personal expenses as well as business expenses. Well, that's not deductible. How much that interest is for business, how much of it is for personal, and personal interest paid on credit cards is not deductible. However, if they can clean up a credit card and use it specifically and only for business, now that same interest is a business deduction, and you'll get that write-off for it. Now, every week I put in something about my financial literacy program, and that's where I'm going to put it in right now. And that is because hopefully you don't have to carry interest over and pay interest on those credit cards. But if you do, let's at least make it tax deductible. So Christine, that's all I wanted to kind of mention for tonight for the tax tidbit, is just emphasize the importance of the benefits of the home-based business from a tax standpoint, and maybe think outside the box a little bit on expanding what's deductible.
Well, you know, what's really good about your topic is that people don't know, by working a regular job as an employee, they have the W-2s that they get, but they can't deduct any deductions. And so let's talk briefly about why the benefit of a home-based business compared to working for somebody else concerning on taxes and deductions.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the W-2 employee, I have a couple clients that all they have is their W-2. And in doing their taxes, I really feel handcuffed. There's absolutely nothing we can do as far as getting some tax deductions for them. Even if they pay expenses on behalf of their employer, that's no longer deductible. So there's just nothing they can do. And quite honestly, they're a frustrating tax return to do for me because I feel totally helpless. If we can bring in some sort of a home-based business, now a lot of the miles they're putting on their car that they're driving anyway, we can convert that into business miles. Some of the traveling that they do. We've talked about the home office deduction. Maybe they can write off a portion of their mortgage or their rent, their utilities, those things. If you have an area in your home that you use exclusively for business, we can get those write-offs. The list is just never ending almost of things, benefits you can have on those tax write-offs from having a home-based business. It's simply not available to anybody with just a W-2.
And when we talk about home-based business, we're talking the same word as network marketing and multi-level marketing, and it's all the same and encompasses that. But basically every company, I have a book I've written, but it talks about mainly what you should look for in a company. It doesn't talk at all about my own personal company I'm involved with, but you know, things that you should look for when looking at a network marketing company. So let's kind of list some of those. And I think it's, you know, the integrity of the co-founders, those that kicked it off, how long it was in place, you know. So what are some things that you say to look for when launching a company?
You want to look at the owners, okay? What type of backing do they have financially as far as experience and everything else? And then who's running it? The owners might be running it, but if not, the people that's running it, their CEO, their finance people who is running that, are they going to be around for a while? Okay. You also have to take a clear look at their products, okay, and their compensation structure, because there's those bad apples out there. Okay, there are some direct sales companies, network marketing companies that are pyramids. Okay, and we talk about pyramids. That's kind of my pet peeve when, oh, that's one of those pyramids. Like, yeah, every business is a pyramid, but there are illegal pyramids, Ponzi schemes, when they don't really have a legitimate product to sell.
Can you elaborate a little bit about that, just so they know the difference between a solid home-based business, network marketing, to the scam pyramid?
Okay, so one thing to look for is, can you sell that product to somebody who's not interested in the compensation plan? Very product focused, okay? For example, this pen right here. I could have a network marketing company selling pens like this, and I can sell them for $50 a pen, okay? But that might not be that's probably going to be an illegal Ponzi, because I can buy this pen for I can buy a box of them for $1.19. Okay, the exact same pans. So first look at the product. Is it a product you can get into? Is it something you enjoy? I'll tell, as I'm consulting with people, especially my non-business people that are just those W-2s, what are your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing? Okay, because probably the odds are pretty high that there is a direct sales company that has products related to that. Who do you enjoy working with? Different things like that. But do they have a legitimate product that you could sell without a compensation plan?
That's, and that's what I really love. In fact, we've had course, what's your passion? There's a company for everything, just about. What is your passion? Is it health? Is it, gold and silver? Is it, there's a company for everything. And so what you're saying is that be careful of who the founders, make sure the backup is. Now, some people feel they need to be in a company that's been at least 10 years established. And my feelings are, if you've checked them out, you want to get in as early as you can. I mean, what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different opinions on that. There are so many companies that go out of business, not because they're a pyramid or anything, but just they don't have the right backing financially, or maybe from a management standpoint. And so I like companies that have been around for a couple of years. Okay. And they've kind of got themselves established. If they've been around 3 years, there's pretty good odds that they'll continue on. They do have that backing. Because what happens, they go through a rapid growth. And their cash flow just does not keep up with the growth that they're going under. And so you want to make sure that they're stable and they're going to be around for a while. But at the same time, I like them to get in early enough that it's the ground floor opportunity type thing. It's not yet a household word. It hasn't gone through what they call momentum, which is really rapid growth. Now, that being said, there are companies that have been around for 30 years. They're still very good companies. There's still good opportunity there. And so a lot of people, like I say, my opinion, there's a lot of opinions. Mine is I like for them to be around for a few years. Now, the company that I'm with, I got in with them before they were even legally a company. They didn't have a bank account set up.
But you knew the co-founders.
But I met the co-founders personally and interviewed them. I'm an auditor, as you mentioned. So I came home, did some due diligence, looked into their backgrounds and stuff, and thought, yeah, these guys can do it. And their product happens to be something I'm very passionate about.
That's excellent. Now, I love this poster I saw, because I want to get back to the pyramid scheme, but they had the triangle and they had a regular company, and it said the CEO will never teach you all of his business. The vice president will never show you what he does either. And so it goes down to a regular structured company, is whereas in home-based businesses, they want you to learn as much as the CEO, just because, and every company has incredible education, because that's how they teach, so that you don't have to pay money to go to college to get a degree to do a home-based business. You just follow the business plan and their education that each one has. And so with that, you do learn to make as much, even more than the CEO, if you put in that effort. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you look at every business that has more than 2 people involved is structured as a pyramid. Like you said, so let's take a traditional business where you have the CEO, you've got vice presidents, you have regional directors, you have local directors, you've got that pyramid structure. But here's the thing: the people that pyramid will never make more than the people above them. The Walmart greeter is never going to make as much money as the store manager, as a department manager, who's not going to make as much as a store manager, who's not going to make as much as a regional manager, and so far on up to that top of the pyramid. In direct sales, a guy that comes in today can be making more than the people that's been in for 20 years, and so ironically, there's more opportunities, in my opinion, in the direct sales industry or network marketing for the average guy to make more than the people that's been around for a long time.
Well, and not only that, I mean, you own yourself. You can set your own hours, your own times. Now, my husband right now, we love what we're doing because we like to prioritize our time together alone. Plus, we are wanting to just really build and do some great things. So we get up at 5 in the morning and we have from 5 to 8 o'clock our time where we do our exercise. We do a bunch of learning together, talking things out, getting our day planned out, and love it. It's our date in the morning. And then what happens is that it just goes ahead. And the rest of the day, he's doing his thing, I'm doing mine, and we meet at night. So it's just a wonderful balance. So you can actually balance your family with this business too. And then you can just take off and do what you want to do if you want to go fishing or something in the morning.
Exactly. But I will say this, it does require a lot more self-discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, your W-2 job, you've got that accountability. If you
Right.
don't show up for work, you're gonna get fired.
Yep.
Okay. And so in direct sales, you need a little bit more, a lot more self-discipline, have accountability people that you're working with that'll make you accountable, and just make sure you show up for work, okay, on a consistent basis.
And that's the learning curve, is learning how to do it. And I've been a home-based, well, not just network marketing, but other businesses out of my home. And it's always been discipline. I was a single mom 15 years. So we had to learn that and learn how to have those priorities with everybody. But this is excellent information to share. So what we're going to do is I want to just put up your slide, your contact information, and then we're going to go to our next guest. But what I want to do is be able to, we'll all open discuss after that. So if you want to let everyone know how to get a hold of you.
So yeah, feel free. My email address is there. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or clarification of what I talk about. I'm happy to answer it. This time of year, I might be a little bit slow getting back to you, but I'm just happy. I like educating my people. My father was a teacher. I could never deal with the high school kids like my father did, but I still kind of have that blood in me, maybe, as far as enjoying educating people. And so reach out to me, don't hesitate, and I'll answer the questions you might have best that I can.
I should appreciate that, Richard. And I'll join up right after this. Right now, I want to introduce Chris LeCheminant. And Chris, in April of 2005, Chris joined the Professional Education Institute as a personal coach for Rich Dad licensed accounts of Choose to Be Rich, Rich Dad Real Estate, Rich Dad Franchise, and Rich Dad Entrepreneur. He also coached the Jack Canfield Success Principles in addition to other programs the company offered. So Chris has one of the highest client retention rates in the entire company. He's coached thousands of clients from over 100 countries around the world to success and personal discovery. So in 2006, Chris founded the DTE, that's Consulting and Desert Toad Expeditions, and that was established to provide independent consulting and coaching programs that combine all of the experience and resources available through experience, as well as active research and study, to business owners and individuals desiring business and personal improvement. So his most powerful program is 12 Steps to Freedom and a Life Well Lived, is designed to create that crystal clear clarity so each client can follow a customized plan full of purpose and passion. So with that, I'm just so excited to introduce Chris LeCheminant. All right, Chris, thanks so much for being here. I sure appreciate you being here each and every week. And I'll tell you what, I'm excited because you work for Robert Kiyosaki. You know how many people wish they knew Robert Kiyosaki? So before we get into this, can you give us, what's it like knowing him?
Oh, actually, it's very interesting. He can be very difficult, but he's an educator as well, and it's really interesting to see how, like Richard talked about, our parents were educators. My dad was a teacher. My mom was a substitute teacher, and Robert's dad was the head of education for the state of Hawaii. But Robert struggled in school. and I did the same. It just wasn't my thing. And learning from Robert that probably because for most people it's simply you're just not interested in what they're presenting to you, or you learn a different way. And that's one of the reasons I love what I do, because most people can embrace coaching because I can adapt the coaching to their learning style. And so, yeah, Robert's the kind of guy where it's pretty entertaining at times, because he'll say, I'm not very smart. And then he'll start to present information and he goes, this dude is really smart. you know he loves to study. He studies all the time. Both Robert and Kim Kiyosaki, they're always studying, always trying to get what's really going on in the world. And he's really prepared me for the environment we're in now, and I really appreciate that. In fact, tonight's presentation is based on Rich Dad principles, but it's also very personal. This I call my journey to freedom, and it's everybody's journey to freedom. It's really cool.
Well, I love it. And thanks for that insight. Now, does he give you the tips about investing like before it happens? Because he's
No, in
that
fact,
would be the fringe benefits of working for him.
no, in fact, if you were to ask him for an investment tip, he'd get very angry. And the reason he will is because yeah, you get that one tip. Okay, good, you got that tip. But did you learn how to find the good opportunities on your own? No. And so that's why he gets very angry when you ask him, where do you think silver's going to go? He'll blow up. It's just, no, you need to learn to figure out for yourself where silver is going to go, or whatever it is, or why real estate's a good or not a good investment.
I have such a great admiration for him, because I read those stories about him and Kim living in a car.
Yeah.
Back when. And
Little brown Toyota in Southern California.
It's part of working for him is to learn all about his life, because you probably, that must have been fun though.
Yeah. When I first was introduced to him, I was very surprised that he's actually a very quiet person. Mm-hmm. But his environment is I'll call it the classroom, his classroom. Mm-hmm. And once you step into his classroom, it's not that he's different. It's not that but he's genuine. It's just he's very focused as a teacher. You don't mess around in his classroom.
I think it's just because he cares. My mother was a school teacher too. So in fact, I grew up with these little books called the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, the black book. There really is a black book called the 3 R's. That was my mom's teaching book. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris. You have a great amount of supply and education for us today, and I'm so excited.
Thank you. As I mentioned, this particular presentation is very personal to me, because it is a journey to freedom, and it's a journey I've taken. And it really started with a tremendous amount of struggle. I wasn't the straight A student in school, and I got into a career I thought was going to be my career for life, just like my dad had a career for life, and I just thought that was the way it was going to go. But unfortunately, what happened is I ended up wandering from career to career to career. And I remember after about 4 career moves, I'm really starting to wonder what is going on here. And eventually I found myself with an opportunity, or I'll call it the wake up, to start educating myself again. I graduated with a degree in business and then just didn't do any studying after that. Thought I was done. And then I realized that, it would be a good idea to keep learning. And so I started studying again. I call it continuing education, but this time it was my choice of what I was going to study. And one of the things I did is I started paying attention to people who made more sense to me. And one of those was Brian Tracy. He's very well known in the circles of business development and personal development. Anyway, I saw him speak, and this was many, many years ago. And the only thing I remember from that, really remember, was the first thing he said. And when he got up on stage, the first thing he said was, "You are only as free as your options." And I remember that just really resonating with me. And I wrote it down, and I just started thinking, you're only as free as your options. That's a very powerful statement. What does it mean to me? And I started to realize that the more options I have, the more freedom I have. And so I started thinking about options. But the problem is I was an employee. And so what do I do with being an employee? How do I create more options as an employee? And I also learned, as I discovered Rich Dad Poor Dad, that really the problem is we still offer to our students an industrial age education, an education that trains you to be a good employee. In fact, not too long ago, well, actually, a number of years ago, as part of a book study group with Robert Kiyosaki, we studied tribal leadership. But not too long ago, I was rereading Tribal Leadership, and I found this quote on page 83 of Tribal Leadership. Good to consider looking at that book, by the way, because when I talk about different levels, and we talk about a my life sucks level, that's one of the tribal leadership levels. But anyway, let me read this to you. In the industrial age, children's welfare and child labor practices became the issue of the age. The solution was to train a new generation of workers by teaching them inside a system that looked a lot like a factory. In school, the bell rings, go to class. Bell rings, recess. Bell rings, go back to class. Bell rings, eat lunch. Bell rings, go home. At school, children with the right answer get the gold star and then an A. A star pupil is the one who does the homework and has the right answers. This new system undid the classic liberal education, which said that the value is in a well-designed question. And this shift in focus made the worker exploitable, often consigning him to a my life sucks career. Tribal Leadership, page 83. And this makes so much sense to me, that really the education system is teaching us to go out and be great or good or successful employees. But is that the only answer? Well, it's not. And it was when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I read Cash Flow Quadrant, the second book in the series, that a whole new world opened up to me. And the cash flow quadrant looks like this. There's more than just being an employee. So there's the E quadrant, we call it, which is the employee quadrant. There is the S quadrant, the self-employed quadrant. There is the B quadrant, business owner quadrant. And then there's the I quadrant, the investor quadrant. Remember, you're only as free as your options. I thought I had one option. What kind of employee am I going to be? And then I realized there are many options out there. E, S, B, and I. And so I started to pay closer attention to what this means. And in coaching it, it became really easy for me to understand the E, S, B, and I quadrants and what they mean. And really everybody that came to Rich Dad Coaching were really looking for a way out of the E quadrant, similar to my journey out of the E quadrant. So when I was looking at this cash flow quadrant, I started to recognize that there were certain things that motivated people to choose the quadrant they're in. The E quadrant is usually a choice of a search for job security. You're choosing job security. And I think over the last few years, many more people are waking up to the fact that that's a myth. in the E quadrant. I mean, think about it. You can get fired pretty easily. You can get fired even if you're very good at what you do. In fact, one of the reasons I gravitated to reading Rich Dad Poor Dad was I was in the finance industry at the time, and I had changed companies. I changed companies 3 times in 2 years, never left my desk. Every time there was a merger, takeover, buyout, whatever it was, I had to fight for my job back. And I started to think that job security, what is that? So even the E-Quadrant doesn't even offer that, but that's what people think they're getting in the E-Quadrant. In the S-Quadrant, it's usually somebody motivated to be independent. And not the kind of yours freeze your options we're talking about, but just being able to do your own thing. And network marketing is actually a great way to begin the process of moving from the E and the S quadrant over to the B and the I quadrants, which is really awesome. But it's usually the S quadrant is a choice of independence. The B quadrant is often a choice where the motivation behind it is creation. Want to create something, create a company, create a business, or buy something that you can then improve and enhance. So the creation process is often the motivator behind the B quadrant. And then the I quadrant is a passive income approach to things. I love the I quadrant in that I get, you can call it mailbox money, where the real estate I own has passive income coming to me. I don't have to work on it all the time, especially if I have others managing the properties, and that passive income comes to me. Build your network marketing business to a high enough level and you have passive income coming to you, whether you work or not. That's a pretty awesome thing as well. One thing to recognize too is that with the cash flow quadrant, you can be in more than one quadrant. I'm in all four. I really am in all four. Ironically enough, the E quadrant as an employee of the Rich Dad Company. How about that one? It's kind of weird, but it works because I have a lot more autonomy than most employees do anyway. But then I have my consulting business, I have business ownership, and I have investments that create cash flow. So the next question is, escaping the E quadrant, how do I do that? How can I escape the E quadrant? Now, what I found out to be very interesting was there were lots of ways to escape the E quadrant. For every person, it can be very, very different. But I did find that there was let me call it a more common pattern for most people than that came to Rich Dad Coaching. I'll put it that way. And it looked like this. They would be in the E quadrant, they want out of the E quadrant, and so they would find something in the S quadrant that they could start or work on and then build into a B quadrant business. Now, at this point, I do want to be pretty clear on this B quadrant business because the official Rich Dad definition of what a B quadrant business is that it's a business that has 500 or more employees. Wow. Okay, so how many of you want a business with 500 or more employees? And when we think of the classical business, that's not something that motivates me all that much to be, and that's me personally. That could be challenging. There's this underground definition that I really like as well, and I use this one a lot when I was coaching, thinking about a B quadrant business being a passive income source. Okay, so I own the business, but I don't have to work in the business. It doesn't have 500 or more employees, but it generates a cash flow for me. Am I going to be upset that it doesn't have 500 or more employees, but it generates cash flow for me and I don't have to work in it? I personally am not the least bit upset about that. So I like that idea that my B quadrant business, I have ownership, I have income coming to me, but I don't have to work in it. That's okay with me too. The other one I think is interesting is if we look at that specifically, the B quadrant business has 500 or more employees. If we step back to network marketing, that's actually very possible that you could have 500 or more people in your downline if you work your business well enough. And you really do have the official definition of a B quadrant business. You own a business with 500 or more in your downline. And I think that's pretty awesome as well. And then the one other thing I think is really critical to consider as you find success in your business, a lot of times what people do is they just up their level of consumption. they they want to look better, they want to be looking good, and so they buy the bigger car, they buy the bigger house, they do all these things that don't generate additional income. Why not instead go ahead and live the lifestyle you're looking to want to live in building your business, like a network marketing business would. But consider at least having some of that income moving in the direction of the I quadrant. So you're not only getting things you like and enjoy as a consumer, but you're also putting some of that money your business makes to work in the I quadrant, in real estate, in other types of assets like precious metals and commodities, maybe even the stock market or whatever you're interested in. But don't focus only on the B quadrant when you can take advantage of the I quadrant as well. Now, when we start talking about this, for some people, you look at that and you think, well, I don't have any experience in business, so how would I be able to succeed in the S quadrant or in network marketing if I don't have any real strong business experience? Well, here's the good news. There's another Rich Dad principle we call the BI triangle. And now you know why it's called the BI triangle. What is the right side of the triangle? The B and the I quadrants. Well, the BI triangle is built around that idea, that principle that we want to move to the B and the I quadrants. So we need to be familiar with what we call the 8 integrities of business. Now, I have a presentation we'll be doing in another Monday night where we're going to talk specifically about the BI triangle. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we'll get into that next time we meet. But these 8 integrities of business are very, very important. You need to have a strong mission. You need to embrace the idea that you don't do this alone, that you're going to have a solid team around you. You're going to want to learn and exhibit great leadership skills, cash flow management skills, communication skills, systems development and implementation, legal, the legal backing of your business and the legal protections your business can have, and then of course the products and services that you would offer. So it's good to understand the BI triangle, so please stay tuned for that one. And one thing, getting back to network marketing, that I think is so cool is a really good network marketing company will provide most of the BI triangle for you from day one. You join, most of the BI triangle is brought to you. And again, we'll talk about that in another presentation. One of the things I think is very important to understand as well is that we're moving into a very unpredictable phase in our world. I think the years that I had growing up as a baby boomer were some of the very best the world had to offer in the history of the world. And I think that is so awesome. And I think it's changing. And I don't think it's changing in such a good way. And so being able to prepare for that is very, very important. And one of those things you need to do is start figuring out how you're going to deal with the specter of inflation. Now, this is another presentation we're going to get into more detail on at a later date as well, but think about this one. If I'm in the E quadrant and I'm an employee and inflation is starting to really rise, and we're seeing that today. It used to be that the stated what I want to say, I like to say that the political perspective, but it's not even political. It's our monetary system is not controlled by politicians necessarily. But anyway, the point is that those that are in control of our monetary system we're trying to target 2% inflation per year, and they couldn't even hit that for a little while, for quite a while actually. But now inflation is becoming something I don't think they can handle, which means we could see rapidly rising inflation, significant inflation. In fact, we're already there at this date. It's probably close to 8%. I'll call it the published inflation rate. And when we talk about inflation in more detail, you'll see that that's even not accurate. But the point is, if I'm an employee and inflation is 8%, can I be confident that my employer is going to give me an 8% or higher raise each year to keep up with inflation? I don't know many employers that will do that. And really, I don't know many employers that can do that and not go out of business. So even they're constrained by their costs and their budgets that they can't even outpace inflation with your wages, even if they wanted to. So you don't have that option of being able to deal with inflation in a different way, but don't accept hope for the best. If I'm in the S quadrant, the B quadrant, the I quadrant, I have some opportunities there. So it's just another reason why you should be very interested and very motivated to consider escaping the E quadrant, simply because inflation is going to become a big deal, I think. So what can you do now? Well, really the most important thing you can do now is figure out what it's going to take to make that escape from the E quadrant. And really it's getting educated. This just happens to be two of the shelves behind me. And you can see that the majority of those books are Rich Dad books. And by the way, Christine was asking about, well, what's Robert like? Well, one of the things he's like is he's not going to be very interested in a free ride. Every book on my bookshelf, except for Why A Students Work for C Students, I bought at the same prices you would buy. I had to go to Amazon and buy it. I had to go to the bookstore and buy them because we value what we sacrifice for. That's one of our rich dad perspectives. So what are you going to sacrifice to improve your knowledge? Improve the greatest asset of all, what's between your ears, and do something about the challenges we're going to face in the future with inflation, with um, uh, a challenging economic environment, and who knows what else. There's a lot coming that I don't think most people are prepared for. But if you're reading and studying good information like the Rich Dad series, you also see that in this picture, I've got everything that Jim Rickards writes. James Rickards is an awesome educator when it comes to the monetary system, and so on. But anyway, be prepared, and you'll need to find your own way out of the E quadrant. But it's not something that's impossible to do. It really, if you just start thinking about that pattern, E to S quadrant to B quadrant participating in the I quadrant as well, is really the secret sauce to your freedom. So what I challenge you to do now is make a plan to exit the E quadrant and develop more options. Christine, I'll turn it back to you.
Trying to undo my mute.
There we go.
I'm sitting there. I'm pushing so many times and it's not working on me. So I didn't mean to do that to you.
That's all right.
It is just phenomenal. I just wrote down some notes. I can't wait to hear that BI triangle. We've heard overview cash flow quadrant, through other means, and of course, briefly, but that really dives into the reasons why and how to do it with the BI triangle. And you're going to be doing that next week. I am so excited for that.
Yeah, what was interesting about the BI triangle is it didn't take me very long as a coach to realize how important that was to provide answers to people when they're trying to get through their coaching program and what they could do personally. I'm going to say this not to brag, but just to encourage people to come next week and learn about this. Whenever there was a question about an interpretation of the BI triangle, I was the go-to coach. It's just because I always used it. It was just I can find answers in the BI triangle for just about any business problem I have. And I would love to have every person who's building a network marketing business understand that and be able to use it for themselves the way I use it all the time in business.
I absolutely love it. And when you speak and when you coach, you can tell you have so much passion about really making that difference. And hopefully that spark will hit somebody and they see it, loud and clear, because it really is a wake-up call right now.
It is. Yeah.
And
I just, it's when I look back and think, if I never picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad, if I had never embraced the message and then became part of the message, I shudder to think where I would be today. Because I know that there's a lot of people that are really worried about today's environment, economic environment, job environment, government environment, liberty and freedom, all that stuff. And I think I would have been right there with them had I not chosen this path. I like to call it the purple path of Rich Dad. And I want to share it with everybody.
And it's a very solid one.
It
And
is.
like you said, I thrive on education. That's why I'm just like front seat when you're showing your presentations, because of your knowledge and years of coaching people. Now let's talk a little bit, because I mean, this is who you are, and I think it's really important. Let's talk about your program on the desert toad that you have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about that.
Okay, so Desert Toad Expeditions is a nod to my growing up years. So there's a whole story behind that, and it's really can I say it's in the incubation process right now, because it requires a lot of resources to make that happen. But it's really connected to the DTE consulting, which is Do the Extraordinary, and it all funnels into that 12-step program. It's funny when I say the 12-step program, people are going, well, I'm not an alcoholic. What are you talking about? It just happens to be there are 12 steps in the 12 steps to a life well lived. We've in developing that program, we have recently changed it to 12 steps to extraordinary, because it's easier to remember. It's easier to follow, but it's really 12 steps that put you in this. Well, it's a plan. First and foremost, it's the creation of a plan. It's a personal plan. It's an individual plan, because I'll tell you what I like to do is not what everybody likes to do. Just last week, I was off the grid for 4 days, freezing temperatures at night, not sure where our water sources were going to be throughout this 4-day backpacking trip in Canyonlands, and I absolutely loved it. And 9 out of 10 people would say, "You're nuts. I don't ever want to do anything like that." And so why would I make a plan that's based on what I want? That's not a good idea. At least it's good for me, but for nobody else. So anyway, this 12-step program takes you through the process of first, why do you want to be successful in your life? And what does a successful life look like for you personally? And then on to, I've actually had a very specific training in the Myers-Briggs type indicator, MBTI. And so I use the Myers-Briggs as another way to figure out what makes a person tick, and then we use that information to help a person understand, like me, if you're very much an introvert, how do you make that a strength, where most people would consider that a weakness, and so forth. So that's the second step. The third step is just generally, how do you live a life that you're thriving, not surviving, but thriving. Then we go into learning how to prioritize, and it goes on and on and on through specific goal setting, clear up to the creation of not one plan, but three personal plans. First, the basic plan, then the plan I call it the abundant plan, because if you don't have the basics, you'll never hold on to abundant. And then the third plan is the extraordinary plan, and that's really the way somebody's going to get all the way up to an extraordinary life.
So it looks like you have the steps of getting inside out.
Yeah. That's coaching. That's what coaching is all about. Is working from the inside out. I don't have the answers for everybody. I can help them draw out those answers. It's discovery as well as education.
Well, I sure absolutely love it. And what is really incredible about your approach and then what you do for others, you've been doing it a long time, and you've taught thousands of people. Let's talk about some of the places that you've been, and just briefly, but it's just astounding what what you've done to make a difference.
Yeah, well, all of the coaching through the Rich Dad organization was phone-based. But you say over 100 countries, it's over 130. Actually, over 130 countries around the world, over 10,000 coaching sessions. In fact, 10,000 is probably a very conservative number.
Oh my heavens.
Because I've been doing this since 2005. In fact, is today April 4th?
Yeah, it is.
It's 16th anniversary, 17th anniversary.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
2005. Today was the day I joined Rich Dad Coaching 17 years ago.
Wow.
April 4th. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even realize that. That just also, wait a minute, that's an important date.
And look what we're doing. You're still
Yeah.
we're celebrating by your
Yeah.
coaching.
So a couple of things I found in that I think is really, really cool, really, really important as well is network marketing is a viable business model all over the world. You know, a lot of people think, well, that works in the US. Oh, it works all over the world. In fact, I think in some ways it works better in other countries than in the United States. And it's awesome. The other thing I think is really cool is that people aren't that different all over the world. Yeah, we hear about these conflicts. Those are our knucklehead leaders making stupid decisions. It's not the people. They're awesome. I mean, I just all over the world I met people that were just so incredible, and everybody wants the best for themselves and their families. That's the common thread that I see through humanity. So when we hear all this stuff about, you know, we get this idea that the world's just going downhill and everything's going to be bad. Well, some things will be because of our politicians and corrupt leaders and greedy people, but overall, I think the majority of us want the same things. And with that in mind, network marketing is an awesome way to find those people who just simply want the same things, a better life for them and their families. And that's one thing that the Rich Dad opportunity taught me was, hey, we're the same all over the world.
That is wonderful. Now, have you run into instances where you needed an interpreter, or does everyone pretty
No,
much speak English?
they had to speak English in order to be able to do the coaching. Thankfully for me, because I know one language, English. And sometimes I don't know what it was. It was the Indian accent. You know, somebody from Hyderabad or something like that. That I'd be coaching is, man, you're going to have to slow down, you know, because I'm struggling to hear what you're saying. But they did speak English, and so that was always the hardest one for me. When I get a client from India, I'd be a little more nervous that it was going to be a struggle to understand their English.
Well, congratulations. That's a lot, tens of thousands. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's amazing. I sure appreciate you
yeah,
being on here. And
yeah.
I was just curious, with leading up to next week, what
Mhm.
can we do as a homework assignment to kind of prepare for it?
Oh yeah. Well, if you were reading the Rich Dad series, so I'm going to lean this way and point behind me. If you're reading the Rich Dad series and really wanted to understand the BI triangle in depth, the fifth book in the series, called Before You Quit Your Job, was really where Robert started to outline what the BI triangle was all about. And he wrote that one about the time I started coaching, 2005. It's not one that's often referenced and quoted, but I loved it. Hence one of the reasons why I find lots of my answers in that. But I remember, and throw away any kind of political persuasion you might have. But I remember when Robert collaborated with Donald Trump. He wrote two books, Why We Want You to Become Rich. But the second book was called Midas Touch. And I remember when I was reading Midas Touch, I'm going, Robert, you're giving away all my coaching secrets. Stop it. Centered around the BI triangle mainly. And so if I couldn't give you lots of information about the BI triangle in one-on-one coaching, or we don't have a lot of time anyway in our presentation next time we meet, I would say get Midas Touch, and you come to the presentation and then read Midas Touch, and I think you'll really start to get a good sense of what we're talking about when we talk about the 8 integrities of business. And I don't want to give too much away, because my introduction next week, well, I almost gave it away right now. I'll tell you a story next week.
Oh, I am so excited. Yeah, I'm going to put some post out on that too. So I sure appreciate you. And Chris, I just can't say thanks enough. We're just lucky to have you with us, and all that you contribute. Here is your contact information, and if you want to share that with us.
Yeah. If the best way to contact me is to just send me a text first. If you call me, I probably won't answer. unless there's a name connected to the phone number. I don't know about you, but I tend to get enough spam that I'm just not interested in who's on the other line unless I know who it is. So just text me and let me know who you are and what your questions are. And keep in mind that I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in all 4 quadrants. And in fact, tomorrow I'm going to be visiting one of the commercial investment properties that I have to look at some long range goals with that. But with that in mind, I still would love to take the time to help anybody who has questions and would like to move forward with their escape from the E quadrant or their growth in the S quadrant and their plan to move to the B and the I quadrants.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we sure appreciate you, and we are excited for next week. Chris, thanks again for being with us today. It's been a real joy.
Thank you for having me, Christine. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to move on. Now, he was talking about Inside Out. So we have a book that has been written, and it is about network marketing from the inside out.